Okay, now we're going to look at creating that NURBS curve, which is up here. And that's a start point, an end point, and a midpoint. Midpoint we determine by using a little calculation. We take the length of the wall, divide it by 2 to find the middle point. And we take those points into a list so we can put them in an order, the correct order, feed them into NURBS curve by control point. You have to tell it how many points you're feeding in. It's one less than the total. And that gives you a NURBS curve. And the tedious part of the whole thing is really setting up this idea of starting and ending of things. So we have the idea of a start loft. I'm going to call it loft because it's the idea of it being kind of sail-like raising up. So we have a start loft, an end loft, and actually we have a mid loft too. And I think I'll just change the terminology here. And then we have a flare, how much in the, I believe that's the X direction. That point moves, and really the same way here, except I'm calling it fullness because the idea is it might move between a positive and negative value to create a curviness. So let's go ahead and start building this in Dynamo. So we're at this definition here, and we're going to actually just take and we'll copy this to start building our curve. So that's the exact same curve right now. And what we really want to do is kind of offset it. So I'm going to use this as an example. We'll just put a number slider here. And we want to move it in a given direction to get an offset. So let's see if that's the X value that we want. All right. So that's kind of like the idea of flare. And I could plug that into both of them, but what I'll do is I'll make these now into some usable sliders. So I'll copy that and paste it. And I will call this start flare. And let's change the value here. Let's not make it so wild. Let's just make it, let's say 50. And make sure it's in units of a foot. And we'll make the other one the end flare right away. And we could just do another one, which we'll call the mid flare. I'll just rename them accordingly. So let's call this one mid. We don't have a thing to attach to that one yet. And this one will be the end flare. Oops. So we have our start flare, which is this value. So that doesn't change because I've just disconnected it from my first number slider. And then we have our mid flare, which is a point we haven't defined yet, so I'm not going to hook that one up. But I will hook up the end flare, and you can see how that moves now. So you can see how we can flare in and out. And now the thing we're missing is really the ability to make a height adjustment. And I did want to change the name of this. Instead of calling it mid flare, I'm going to rename this as belly. We'll kind of understand that that's defining it as being not really a point connected to the line, but something that's affecting curvature. And so we have this idea of flare, but we know we want to have the idea of a height. So I'm going to copy this one again. I'll put this one on top instead of bottom. And we'll rename this the height. And we want to connect that to the start height, so we'll connect it to the Y. Nope, excuse me, Control Z. It's our Z. And so now we can control how high our start point is. And we can do the same thing again. We'll make a end one. Put that one on top. And we'll connect that one to this. And so we can adjust the end height, and we can adjust the end flare. So now we have full control over these two endpoints. We have this midpoint that we really haven't dealt with yet. So I'm just going to make another coordinate. And we really don't, I'm going to disconnect it from everything. And let's just connect its motion in one direction. So I'll just put it in the Y here. It's not the one I want. I want it in the X one, I would believe. All right, so this is the idea of controlling how much it bellies in or out, but it's really got to be at the midspan of the wall. So the wall length, so I'm going to take all of these, just move them over a little bit, because I need to get a little bit of extra math in here. I need a numbers, excuse me, a code block. And we're going to make this, it's going to be a Y value, Y divided by 2. What's really nice about that, it now allows us to put in a value, it automatically generates that whole thing. And we know that Y was the structure length. And if we feed that into this Y, you'll notice that that point moves to the center of this whole length. So anytime we change the length of this, the whole wall system, it will correspondingly still stay in the middle of that. But it's sitting down at the ground, and we really don't want that. So what we want to do is we want to move it up. So we're going to make another a mid-belly height. And we'll plug that into the Z moving vertically. And now we can control where that NURBS, or where that control point is for that NURBS line. And like I said, this is going to be a NURBS line, so it's 3 points: the start point, the end point, and then this control point. So the first thing is that we can no longer use a line, and we got to bring these together. So we need a list create, excuse me. And we're going to put 3 values together. And it'll be a, let's see, is this the start point? Start point, midpoint, end point. And if we look, we'll see we have a list of 3 points. And now we want a NURBS curve. I always have a hard time finding this one. Oh, that might be it. Yep, NURBS curve. So we're going to feed those points in here. And we need a degree, which is we need a number. And that always turns out to be the one less than the number of points. And so now we have our NURBS curve. So now we can actually alter the curvature of that shape. Let me go back to a view where you can get a better perspective of what's going on here. And we'll look at that idea of bellying. So now we can belly that curve, and we can affect how much it sags or droops. So now we have really all of our three lines set up for us. We probably want to make this higher so it actually looks like it's sitting. And our next step will be to look at dividing these segment lines off in our next clip.